Okay, can you hear me now? Let's see here. Let me know if you can hear this now. Check 1, 2. All right, sound good, sound bad, too loud, too soft. I had the darn monitor turned off, so, I don't know if you guys have ever done any streaming, but holy shit. It's a lot of settings it's a lot of crap to wrangle together. All right, so I got a little bit of a shadow from this mic on my face, but, right? Hi, Phyllis. All right, so we got some people plowing in here. All right, so everything sounds good, guys? You can hear me, you can hear the guitar. How's the guitar sound? I got a little bit of reverb on it. Does that sound good? Just okay? I'm going for great. I don't know, I mean, if you're listening on a phone, then yeah, it's probably just okay. Okay. Just out of curiosity, we're going to get going here, don't worry, be patient with me. Just curious, what are you guys watching this on, or listening to this on? Are you on your phones? Are you on tablets? Are you listening through actual speakers? Just wondering. Just gathering information. Okay, so Chuck's in the studio, so you can tell me it's good, okay, better than good. Craig's on his phone. Craig's on his phone. I'm going to hop out here for a second and turn a noise source off to my right, down. Okay, yeah, I mean, it's a good guitar, right? Not sure why I don't have, I was hoping to have the chat. I was hoping to be able to see the chat on my Kindle. And of course I'm not seeing it, so you're going to see me ducking over here to see what's going on here. Okay, what do you think, guys? Does that sound okay? Let me know. Okay, so the CAGED system. What is the CAGED system? Well, this is based on open chords that we learn on the guitar, otherwise known, some people call them campfire chords. But these are chords in the first position. By the first position, I mean in the first 3 frets. Okay, so let me run through what I'm talking about here. So G, major, D, C, A, and of course E. Okay, so what's the deal with these chords? Well, they all use open strings, at least one open string. For instance, D. A D chord only has one open string in it. But it's an open string nonetheless. If I make it a sus, it's got 2 open strings in it. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a distinction. Make sure we all are understanding that we have to make a distinction between a chord, okay? If you Google what is a chord, it's going to tell you that you need at least 3 notes played simultaneously, 3 or more. And that's a chord. And it doesn't have to be, doesn't say anywhere that it has to sound good. It's just 3 notes played at the same time, 3 or more notes played at the same time. So that's a chord, okay? This is a C chord. Okay, now, also, so we have to make a distinction between a chord that I just described and a chord form. Okay, a chord form, the form refers to the form that your hand assumes when playing that chord, okay? So you have a chord, and then you have a chord form, okay? So, for instance, let's jump right in here. So say I have this C chord. We're going to start with C because the word caged starts with a C. So we have a C chord. And at the moment, we also have what we're going to call a C form, okay? This is the form that your hand is assuming to create that C chord, at least on these 3 frets. Now what happens if I move my C form up, say 1 fret? I get this, right? That's not going to work, okay? So what's happening here? Well, the strings that my fingers are pressing are moving up 1/2 step or 1 fret each, but I'm leaving my open strings behind, and so they're not moving up, so that's a problem, okay? So, in order to fix that problem, what we do is we turn these chords into what we call movable chord forms, okay? Bear with me here, lots of weird terms, but I think you get the basic picture, right? Okay, so we're going to take this C chord, and in order to move this C chord up to say C sharp, what we have to do is we have to make a bar with the index finger to cover those open strings and bring the open strings up 1/2 step with the other notes that we brought up. And then that looks like this. Now it's working, right? Now it sounds okay. Let's see here. Okay. Right. Okay, so now we have a C sharp chord. This is a C sharp major. Let's bring it up again. Now we have a D. Okay, this is a D chord, okay, but it's still a C form, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Chime in here and let me know if you have any questions about this, if you're not clear on something. Or just chime in because, you know, you don't want me to feel lonely, do you? Okay, so far so good. We have a distinction between a chord and a chord form, okay? So we're using a C form, okay, to create a D chord. Now I have a D sharp or an E flat chord. Now I have an E chord. Since I'm playing an E chord here in the C form, since I'm playing an E chord, I can then use the open low E string with this chord, for instance. But only for that E. As soon as I go to the F, not gonna work, okay? Okay, so that's the deal with chord forms and chords. Okay, hopefully you guys got that. I'm going to lean over here and read this comment here. Sorry to interrupt. Sort of a weird doubling in the audio that wasn't there yesterday, not just the normal reverb. Okay, let me make a couple of changes here real quick and see what I can do here. So I don't want to crash everything. Let's see here. Let's go to the mixer. All right, bear with me here, guys. Let's try 256. Let's see here. Okay, I think what it is, I had to turn my YouTube volume, because I have YouTube up. All right, I'm going to go with that. And, okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit and play a little bit, and you guys let me know if that strange echo is gone or not. Two, 1, 2. All right, chime in here, guys. Let me know. Okay, good. All right, I was using a slightly different thing last night when I did a test. Okay, let me know if you hear any other issues here. Okay, so we've made our distinction between chords and chord forms. Okay, so let's get back to our chord forms. We were talking about this C form. Okay, so we've got our C form C. This is a C chord, and this is a C form, okay? So starting from the beginning of the word caged, we have C. Okay, what's our next letter? A, and that's our next form. So A form, it's going to be right next door here, here. Okay, this is also what we call the root 5 chord form. All that means is the root of the chord is on the 5th string. This is a C on string 5, okay? So that looks like this. Okay, I'm playing it maybe a little bit differently than I would normally play it, just to kind of make sure that you can see this A form here. There's the A. If you recognize that from the first position, okay, this would be an actual A form, A chord. Okay, A sus. Okay, so what we've done is we've taken this A form when we've moved it up to fret 5 and put a bar behind it to bring our open strings up with it to create a C chord. Okay, so now we have a C chord. But it's an A form, okay? You got that? So we've got the first couple of letters or forms of our caged thing, okay? So C form C, A form C chord, okay? Now, this next one is, I think, probably what gets a lot of people. It might get a little confusing if you're on your own and you're trying to plow through this. And you get to the G. Because G, you know, I don't think anybody ever really uses this big, full G form I'm about to show you. It looks like this. Okay, hopefully you can see that's the G form, okay, from the first position. If I do it like this, you can see it comes from here. This is our open G form, G chord. So we're taking our G form and we're moving it up so that the root, now this is would be known as a root 6 chord, okay? The root of the chord is on the 6th string. If I have my 6th string fretted at 7, oops, I'm sorry, 8. Okay, fret 8 on the low E is a C. Okay, so there's our root. We have our C root, we have our C chord. Okay, we're still straight with all this. Okay, so we have a G form C chord, major, okay? So, C form C, A form C, G form C. Okay, what's our next letter here in the word caged? E, all right? We're going to use the same root string. Okay, this is also going to be a root 6 chord. Okay, and that's going to be, our bar is going to be where our ring was here in the ring finger was in this G form. So our bar, our index is going to come up right there. That's going to continue our C root for this chord here. And we're going to have, this is, you know, along with the A form we did, this is probably the most popular or widely used movable chord form. You've probably seen this or played it millions of times, okay? So this is one we know well. And there is the E form, hopefully that you recognize from the first position. If I bring this down, looks like this. This is an E chord now, okay? E form, E chord. Okay? So, we take our E form and we move it up to, where am I here? Oh. Okay? So hopefully you can see how that's working here. I'm going to try to get it a little bit better in tune here. My friend, Sav, S-A-V-V, he chimed in last night. I was doing a test here at like literally 3:30 in the morning. And he came in and said, hey, you know, your guitar's tuned down a half step. And I thought, okay, yeah, I got to, you know, personally, I like doing that, but, you know, for a lesson, probably good to be, you know, get back in 440, right? Okay, so hopefully, if you guys are trying to play along here, we're in tune. That sounds pretty good. Okay, so there's that E form, but we're creating a C chord in the position that we're in here. So now we have C form C, A form C, and G form C. Now an E form C, root 6. All these are major, of course. We'll get into maybe minors. I don't know if we'll have time for that. But. Okay, what's our last letter in the system? D. So that's going to be, well, I'll get back to that. So, well, I'll mention right now, my pinky is on the D string 10. I'm gonna take over that note with the index finger, and you're gonna see me grab this D form here. Okay? So there's your D form. If I take this back down to first position, you recognize it. Now I'm playing a D chord again. The D form, D chord, D form, C chord. Okay? I can make it a D7. I can make it a D7 sus. D7 sus 2. So, we've gone all the way through our caged system here. We've got C form C, A form C, G form C, E form C, and D form C. Okay, does that make sense? Let me take a look here. Is there an easier way to play the G form? Good question. Did you hear that? My mics are way over here. Is there an easier way to play the G form? I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that that was probably one of the forms that throws people off. Again, if you're on your own and you're not an experienced player and you get to that form and you go, what is going on with that? We'll get into that. So the G form, you know, let's look at this G form here for a second. We don't really use that. We don't do bar Gs. What we do, let me give you an example of some chords that you might use that fall into this position, okay? And what I mean by this position, at this moment, in this particular key of C, okay, we're talking about C, we're at, you know, the 5th position, meaning my index finger is at the 5th fret, and we have 5, 6, 7, 8 here. Okay? Now, that's going to change if we start talking about another chord. If we were in D, then this would be up here. Okay? So we don't want to get into fret numbers, because the point of this is just to be able to use this anywhere. And to get away from being dependent on fret numbers altogether, really. I mean, well, you know what I mean, okay? Hopefully, and I'll explain more, and hopefully you'll understand this, okay? So G form. So let me give you an example of some chords that we might do in this position. And again, so the position, when I say position, I don't mean fret numbers. I mean the position located between the A form chord and the E form chord. Okay, we have an A form that comes to a halt here at 5th fret, and then we have the E form chord where the bar going this way comes to a halt at the 8th fret. And that is the spot where the G bar, which we never use, would lie, okay? So, what do we tend to do in that area, chord-wise? A couple of things. I can think of a couple of things that I do there. But generally, I would start with something maybe like this. I mentioned in my Jazzing Up the Blues thing about, you know, dropping the root out of chords. Normally in a song, you know, or normally in a band scenario especially, you know, if you've got a bass player, you don't necessarily really need to state the root note, okay? Or maybe if you've stated the root note already with another chord form and then you move to this chord form, you don't necessarily need to grab this root like this, okay? You can leave that out. That immediately makes things a lot easier, just not having to get these two guys in the bottom here, okay? So that's the first thing that you can do. And this is a nice little voicing here. This gives you... Now if I were to do that, so like I said, if I'm playing this... Okay, you didn't probably hear any problems with there being no root when I slid up to this chord, right? It wasn't like, oh, where's the root of the chord? It's gone. I don't know where I am. No, it's fine. Okay? Some maybe fancier things that we might do here in this spot here between the E form and the A form. Something I use quite a bit would be this chord. This is a dominant chord. All that means is that I have a flatted 7. I don't know how far I want to get into this kind of stuff, but let's just say that it's a G7 add 9, okay? Or maybe it's would that be? Yeah, it's a G7 add 9. This is the 3rd of the chord. This is the note that makes it a major chord. Okay, in C, that would be E. Okay, the third of C, do, re, mi, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that is the major minor determining note of a chord or a scale. Okay, so this guy here, you can see where that sits. I'm using the note that I used in this a minute ago. Well, okay, so I have a question here. Okay, well, it does apply to those other, so someone just asked about, well, how does this apply to minor 7 flat 5 and, different types of chords, not just major chords? Well, it does. And as I kind of move through this, you'll see kind of the point of this, of knowing this system. And those things are just, alterations of the major chord. You start with a major chord like this, and then you start to make alterations of that chord. So we have a C, this is a root 6 E form C chord. Okay, and I can do a bunch of stuff. I can, somebody just asked about minor 7, blah, 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 all that kind of, chord extensions and all that kind of stuff. Well, I can do that with any of these forms, but I'll just, just off the top of my head here on the E form, I can start to make those alterations simply by moving some notes around in the chord like you normally would with any chord. So in that way, it's not really different. So for instance, if I wanted to make this a C7, I would lift my pinky from this chord form and I would get C7. If I wanted to make it a C7 sus4, I would put my pinky on the third string here, and I've got a C7 sus4. If I wanted to make it a C7 add 13 or add 6, I would put my pinky on the second string on the same fret as my ring finger here in the E form. By the way, in case you're wondering, that all still works. All of these alterations that I just explained, they work the same way in the open form. So if I go back to, this is an E form C, if I go back to E form E, all those things still function the same way. If I wanted to make this into an E7, I would lift my third finger from the D string. Now I've got a dominant chord. If I wanted to make it a suspended, dominant 7 sus4, I would put my ring finger on the G string, or the third string on the second fret. Okay, if I wanted to add a 13 to that, I would do that. If I wanted to make it minor 13, that's a minor 13. Okay, so same alterations would be done up in the same way because it's the same form. Okay, so you're doing the same, finger alterations because it's the same form. All we're changing is the location of the form to give us a different root. Okay, so now we're back to C again. And all those things apply, of course. So C7, C sus4, C minor, C minor 7, C minor 7 add 9, okay, C minor 7 add 11, ooh, that's not, that open E doesn't work. Sometimes, you can be using as I said before, when you move a chord around, well, I don't want to get, maybe I'll come back to that. But hopefully this is answering your question. So I think you mentioned, did you mention minor 7 flat 5? Let me take a look. Yeah, so John mentions minor 7 flat 5. That would be this guy here. This would be, well, I'm jumping around now too much. Okay, this is a minor 7 flat 5 voicing. It might not be the voicing that you prefer. If I were going to do a C minor 7 flat 5, I would probably do that in the area of the A form here, like this. All right, so that's how that works. Hopefully that's clear. Ask me, well, let me jump over here and read another comment here. Okay, so really good question, and this is why I'm making this video. Hopefully you guys are all seeing what John is asking me. Okay, so now the alterations of these chords that I was just talking about doing major and dominant, dominant sus, minor 7/11, minor 7 flat 5. Well, that is really beyond the scope of the point of the CAGED system. Those are things that you need to go and you need to learn those. You need to learn how to make the alterations to each form to get the chord that you want, okay? Now, so getting to the point of the CAGED system. The point is, it is a way to map your fingerboard, okay? So let's talk about what that means. And I'll start simple, and then we'll build it up. Okay, so I have a song that I'm playing, and that song has a C chord in it. Okay, I'm bored with that C. Okay, I want another possibility. Where else can I play a C that's going to maybe give me a different sound? Okay, well I can use this one. Now I know. Okay, C. I know my A form's right next door. Let me use that. If I want to play a sus, that might be a better choice because, well, it's just voiced different. What is a chord voicing? Okay, I don't want to get too bogged down in these things. But all of voicing is, you might even couple that with the word inversion. Inversion, voicing, all that means is you take a chord like C, C, E, G, okay, really that's all it is. We have another note here, it's just another C, and then this is just another E. When you play a C chord, you're using 5 strings, and it seems like, well, I'm playing 5 notes. Well, no, you're only playing 3 notes, actually, because 2 of them are being repeated, okay? C is being repeated, and E is being repeated. Okay, so, changing the order of those, okay? You don't have to voice the C chord, C, E, G. You could voice it C, G. You can put the notes in different order. That's really all that means, okay? So that's what we're doing. It's given us some different choices of the way that we can voice the chord or invert the chord. Like for instance, this particular order of notes for a C chord, for a sus chord, is different than if I try to, and all I mean by sus, in a C major, all we're doing is we're just adding an F, okay? Because that's the 4th, okay? Suspended is, when we say suspended chord, what we really mean is we're adding a 4th. What does the 4th mean? Same thing I explained about the 3rd. It's simply the 4th note of a C major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I could also do a sus, C sus like this in the 1st position. Okay, that's a nice voicing. You've probably heard that somewhere. If I lift my finger off the D string or the 4th string, I'm going to get a sus 2. And again, 2, all that refers to is the number that note falls on in the scale. C, D, 1, 2. Okay, that's all we're doing. Keeping it simple. Okay, that's nice, but if I want something different, I've got the choice. I've got my A form. I can do something different with this. That's different. It's the same notes. It's still a C chord with an F and a D, but it's voiced differently. It's inverted differently, okay? Is that making, hopefully it's starting to get there, okay? Or I could go to my G form, okay? And I could, that's going to give me yet another sound for this C chord. Well, for one thing, it's just giving me higher notes. I could add that. All I did there was just add a C in the high E. That's fret 8. Okay, I'm getting kind of weird here, but hopefully that's, you know, is starting to make a little bit more sense. Let me gander over here. Okay, so you mentioned knowing your intervals. Well, you know, that's something that you want to know, just that you want to know, period. Not necessarily related to the way the caged thing functions, okay? But again, so this would be the kind of just mapping out the more simple things about how this helps you is you simply have more choices for chords. You can play them in different positions and you always know where you are. If you know where all your forms lie, like this, okay, that gives you some choices. You've mapped this all out now. You know where all this stuff lies. Okay, this is, for instance, if I wanted to play a C7, this sounds very significantly different that's a whole different vibe than this. Okay, and if you know these and you get them down, you can go to different keys, okay, or different chords or whatever, and they're mapped. Okay, you know where they are, you know the order, you know the forms, and you can quickly give yourself these choices of different voicings and versions and different keys, and always kind of know where you are, okay? Now, you might, okay? Thank you. Somebody just said, you sound great. Thank you very much. Okay, so hopefully that's, okay, we're getting a little bit more into it here, right? Okay, hopefully that's making sense. And you're seeing at least that one advantage of it, okay? You've mapped out the fingerboard. Here's how C, the key of C in chords, looks on the guitar. Okay? I could do that, again, if I rewind a little bit, I could do that with any version of a C chord. Okay, well, that brings me to, okay, so here's a good point. So, for instance, if we have this first position C, say we want to make this a C minor. Well, there's really no good sounding way to make this a minor chord. If we lower the third here, it's going to be this. Yeah. Well, I guess I'd have to take that E out, right? The open E doesn't work anymore, and it just feels awkward. If we play a C minor, if you've been playing guitar for a while, you probably know what I'm going to say is you need to do this, right? Most people, if you have to play C minor, you play the A form of the C. Okay, this was the major one we did. Okay, C minor. You don't want to play that C minor in the first, in the C form. Not going to work. Okay, so that would be another thing. Certain types of chords sound better or worse in the different forms. You'll have to kind of work with it and see what your preferences are, depending on the type of player you are. Now, for instance, if I'm a jazz guy and I want to play a C minor in the first position here at the first 3 frets, then, you know, that might be a different thing, because then I might do something like this, maybe a C7 add 9. Ooh, but I still wouldn't be able to use that high E. Okay, that's a pretty nice sounding chord. But if I just want to do a straight up C minor, C form is not a good choice. Okay, A form is a much better choice. The other good thing about the A form C minor in this scenario is I can make some alterations to do some other types pretty easily. For instance, all I have to do is lift my pinky here, and I've got C minor 7. Okay, this would be if I add pinky to the high string where my ring finger is, I've got a 6th. Okay, I can add another 7 to it by extending pinky out here to the 6th fret, for instance. Okay? Right? Okay? Making a little bit more sense, I hope. back to this, another good choice with the A was minor 7 flat 5. Now, depending on, minors, if you're playing pop and rock, you're probably not going to encounter a minor 7 flat 5, but if you do, I think that's one of my go-to spots for minor 7 flat 5. Trying to play that in the first position, not going to work very well. Trying to do that up here, well, I think I did this one earlier. That's okay. That's going to sound better. Sometimes it could depend on the song, and it depends on how you're using how you're treating the other chords in the song, and the way you're voicing those, because they all kind of depend on each other. The way they sound will affect how the other chord sounds after or before, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Good, very good, okay? That's the deal, man, okay? Okay, so, all right, so you guys are with me. Hopefully you're understanding what I'm getting at with this. I suppose I thought about the CAGED for a lesson because, I was saying this to Sav last night. I will often go around and check out videos of YouTube lessons. Not because I don't know the CAGED system, but just to see how other people teach the system. And I found that, man, it's very divergent. People have a lot of different takes on what this is. Everybody does this, this deal. But the way they explain it can be quite different. And the way that they lay it out and the order that they kind of teach it to you can be extremely different. Some people explain it really well and actually mention things that I didn't really maybe think of that way. Other people really are just very confusing. It really just kind of confuses you. You end up being more confused than you were before you watched the video. So I didn't want to make a video like that. Okay, so hopefully that, gives you another, that's our second dimension of what we're talking about here, is being able to, pick the form that suits the type of chord. And what I mean by the type is minor, major, major 7, minor 7, add 9, add 11, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So, but you still have, back to the, at least so far, the main function of it being, you've got a map, okay? If I'm looking at the fretboard and I'm thinking to myself, C major, that gives me a map. Now, if we start to talk about scale patterns, okay, here's another thing, another dimension. If you think scale patterns, okay, say I said to myself, okay, I want to play C major, okay, and I'm going to learn all the C major scale patterns all across the fingerboard. For instance, okay, I'm going to move these scale patterns up, and I'm going to keep playing C major, and I'm going to move across. I'm going to play a bunch of patterns here. Whoops, I'm dominant. Right. Anyway, I'm getting a little out there, but okay, scale pattern there, scale pattern over here, I got a scale pattern over here, I got a scale pattern that falls under the E form here. Okay, there's one up here, and they keep going. I'm so used to playing dominant scales. I go to major and I'm like, whoa, dominant 7. Okay, so if you're trying to do that, if you're looking at things in scale pattern type of a scale pattern sort of way, I find that visually it's harder to follow when you're thinking about scale patterns, and especially if you're playing scale patterns and you want to be able to kind of jump around positions. For instance, you know, that kind of thing where you're able to, you don't have to just stay here and go. You could maybe go. You get the idea, okay? That kind of deal. Now, to do that, you can do that, okay, and just kind of have, you know, figure out your scale patterns. But for me, when I kind of look at the fingerboard and I think of the key of C, it helps me, and it's simpler to me and more economical and a lot less effort to simply think and visualize these chord forms instead of all the scales. Now, you still, or the patterns, scale patterns, okay, so you still need to an extent, you know, need to learn the scale patterns, but at least you have, you know, they're kind of just markers. These are like markers. And they kind of, you know, it gets you in the neighborhood. And once you're kind of in the neighborhood with the chord form, then it kind of, you know, starts to come in where, okay, my scale's here. Okay, if I think about, I want to jump down to a lower position, maybe in the third position. Initially, I'm going to think about my A form chord slightly before I would start to get into, okay, what's my scale pattern under that chord, okay? Okay, does that make sense? Yes, okay, so somebody just made a comment about relating the CAGED chords to the scale patterns. Well, so that's a little bit, you know, to the right of what, you know, the CAGED, you know, again, so the CAGED thing is hopefully, you know, after all we've been through here, you can at least see a couple of advantages. You know, these things might become more clear as you kind of work with this and get to know it, really study it. You know, there's no substitute. You know, there's not going to be, you know, there are shortcuts here and there, but I think you know what I mean. You know, it's not going to be overnight. You're going to suddenly be able to just know all this stuff and be able to play all the patterns great and know every pattern down pat under every form. You're still going to have to work on it, okay? It's not going to be a magic pill, okay? Nothing really is it? You know, a lot of, you know, think of all the systems and videos and teachers. You know, I saw a thing the other day on Facebook where this guy's doing country lessons and he's talking about do this and do that and I'll show you this thing and tomorrow you'll be playing like Keith Urban and Brad Paisley. And I'm like, no you won't. You know, that's going to take years to do that. You know, it doesn't work that way. There's no magic pill. The best thing you can do is, you know, find a good teacher, or at least find a teacher that you can relate to, that seems to speak your language, that seems to explain things in a way that you can understand. You're still going to have to do the work. You're still going to have to learn these chord forms, how they lay out, practice them, go up and down, and learn the major and minor patterns that fall below these. Okay, I can go through the ones that I use. You know, at the end of the day, to be honest with you, I really don't use that many of these forms. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I have my favorites, you know. There's a lot you can do. You can do a bunch of different types and inversions of each form, but at the end of the day, you know, you're probably going to find that eventually you will filter those down to your favorites that you use for almost everything. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. Let me go through, I guess, a couple of the patterns that I would say that would be good for you to practice. You probably know some of these. So under a first position C would be probably going to be able to get that one under your belt pretty quickly, if not already. Under the C, we would have this guy here. Okay, A form. G Okay, I'm running through these kind of fast. I am going to leave this stream up. You can just go back and watch some of this. Use your speed control on YouTube if you don't know where that is. If you go to the little gear, if you go to the little icon, the gear icon on the lower right of your YouTube screen, you punch that, you're going to see your video resolution. Then you're also going to see the speed setting, and you go in there and you can go 3/4 speed, half speed, all the way down to 1/4 speed, and you can slow things down. And you'll look at this later, and you'll lower the speed. And I'm sorry, where was I? Okay, and I'll be doing this. Okay, you can learn that anywhere, you know. I really just wanted to give you an overview of the system. Anybody can go on Google now, or you know, there's tons of YouTube videos where you can learn the forms, and you can learn all these forms, and you can learn tons of scales. You know, that's not really what I wanted to get through to you. I wanted to really give you this overview that I'm giving you, and hopefully it's been helpful, at least so far, okay? So I think now what I'm going to do, because my camera battery, I didn't check my camera battery, and I'm hoping it's going to last a little longer. I think I might be able to, if I do lose my camera, I think I might be able to show. I do have a charged battery to my right here that I could throw in there. I don't know if everything's going to stay working as if I have to switch a battery. It'll be a good test to see if I can do that. Although I do have what we call a dummy battery coming this week, and that is a battery that you put in the battery slot and it plugs into the wall, and I don't have to worry about that anymore, and I can stream for hours and hours, okay? So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a little bit. I'm going to go back to this little E blues jam that I started off with when we started the stream, and I'm just going to play like I would normally play, and then I'm going to, you know, and whenever I do a certain move to a certain form or do a certain lick or whatever, I'm going to stop and I'm going to tell you what is going on and why and what's happening there, okay? And how I'm using this system, okay? Okay, so let me take a look here. You can share this to Facebook, absolutely. I probably, well, I did do an event flyer for this, which is on Facebook. Oh, can I share this to Facebook? I guess I should have thought about that earlier. I don't want to get too into that thought right now because I don't want to lose my train of thought here. But that's a good point. Thank you. No link. No link. I'm not sure what you mean. I can, yeah, I'm not sure about that. Yeah, next time. I'll figure that out. I'm learning as I'm going here, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging with me. Okay, so I'm going to do what I just said. I'm going to play a little bit, and I'm going to let you know what I'm thinking and how I'm calculating using this system, okay? Little E blues. I'm going to be using E chords, E7 chords, E major chords. I'm going to be using A chords. Okay, all the chords of an E blues, E, A, and B. In a blues, they're going to tend to be, you know, dominant, probably for the most part. Okay? Okay, so here we go. Okay, what was that? Okay, what is this? This is a double stop, okay? I mentioned earlier a chord, technically, if you want it to be a real chord, has to be at least 3 notes or more. So A single note is a single note, right? So what's two notes simultaneous? Well, we call it a double stop. I'm not completely sure where that term came from. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's a violin or maybe orchestral or violin term. You know, violins generally don't play chords. They play double stops because the strings are like this. One string's here, the next string's here, the next string's up here, and the next string's down here. Okay, so you can only get the bow on two of the strings at once. I think if you press real hard, you can get three in there, but generally, you just have the double stop, okay? So I'm pretty sure that's where that comes from, to clear that up for you if you're wondering about that. Okay, so I got to the A chord, and I'm playing my A form A7, which is just an A major with a hole in the middle. We were just coming off of the third string, making the third string over. And I did a half-step approach to that to kind of jazz it up a little bit. And then I went, okay, what was I doing here? What am I thinking? Well, I'm thinking of my A chord in the E form. Here's the complete E form. Okay? When I think about this E form, I think of the root and the third. This is what the double stop is. It's the root, it's an A, and the third, which is a C sharp, okay? Okay, so okay, let me put that all together. Okay, what's that all about? Where did that come from? Well, it comes from I'm using the CAGED system to figure out what's happening, to map where I can go, where my chords are all over the fingerboard, so that I'm not locked into this and this and this. Okay, so I came to my A here, and I thought, well, let me pop up to the E form A. That's going to give me a high A. Okay, in blues, once we get to that A, the 4 chord, we want to get back to the E. So I thought, well, I came up to the A. Maybe I don't want to have to just jump back all the way down to this E. Where can I go from this A, this E form A chord? Well, I know from my knowledge of the CAGED system that I have an E chord in the A form that's right next door here that keeps me moving up. So what did I think of? I thought of this chord, my A form E. Okay, I'm going to do it this way because this is really hard. I'm trying to be descriptive with my fingering here so you can always kind of see what I'm doing here, but I'm just going to do it Eric Clapton style here, okay? This is kind of a reverse bar. We're not really barring with the first finger for this form. We're actually barring sort of 3 strings with the ring finger here, okay? So I got my A. I thought, okay, I'm going to go up to my E form A. It's going to give me a higher A, and it's going to give me, you know, I've got my double stops. Now, as I said before, you have to work through these. There's no magic pill. You still have to work through these things, okay? And I'm going to help you. And then I thought, okay, from my A, I got to get back to E. And I thought, well, I don't want to go back down here. How can I continue to go up? Might be nice, right? So I thought, well, where's an E that's close to here that's up in pitch? Well, it's right here. Okay, I wanted to stick with the double stop. So now the double stop that I use that resides within the A form is the D and the B string. Okay, it's the 5th and the 3rd of this E chord. Okay, now what I like to do, I'll just kind of throw this in here, as I said in my description, the CAGED system and other cool stuff. Let me give you an other cool stuff. So how did I approach that? I did a little approach to this E, okay? We talked about this in Jazzing Up the Blues. Instead of just going right to this, I decided, okay, let me stick with my double stop that I did. And then I went a step beyond that and thought, instead of going from my E form A double stop, why not, you know, instead of just going from here and then bang right to here, why not approach it? Okay, where am I approaching it from? I'm approaching it from a few half steps below, from here. and then I'm going to state I happen to have a low E available, and I'm going to do that. That's going to kind of complete my E thought, okay? So I got, okay? Does that make sense? I'm using the CAGED system there, okay? My knowledge of the chord forms, where they all fall. I know where I can grab any one at any time. I know all my types. I know all my scales that fall below all those. Okay? Again, no magic pill. You still have to do the homework on this, but at least you know where it's headed. Okay? You can maybe see something like that and go, yeah, I want to be able to do that. How do I do that? This is how you do it. You've got to start at the beginning. You've got to map out your, okay? Okay, I'm going to keep playing here. I'm going to do a thought on this. I did this earlier. I'm sorry. Okay, so what's that? That is something that you can use. It's simply taking these double stops that I so love and use a lot and moving them up 3 frets from wherever the chord is. It's super simple, but it's super effective, and you can get tons of mileage out of this. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of this. Okay, we can take an E double stop. Okay, this is the 5th string 2 and the 3rd string 1. Okay, and I'm simply moving this up 3 frets like this. Okay, what have I got here? Let's see. Well, I'll maybe get back to that. It goes the other way. Okay, if I go to my A7 here, I can do the same thing with that guy. Okay, where do I end up here when I come up there? I've got the, I'm in the area of this E form A. I've just got a piece of that chord, okay? It's the 7th and the 5th. Okay? Maybe not the most super exciting, you know, there's no 3rd in there, but the point of that move is that movement. Okay? So that works there. It works anywhere. You can do that with any chord. If you just grab a 3rd, usually it's a root and a 3rd, or maybe a 7th and a root, or, you know, it's usually somewhere to do with the essentials of the chord, the root, the 3rd, the 7th, sometimes a 5th. I spoke about 5ths in Jazzing Up the Blues, about how 5ths are sort of building blocks. They don't really affect, you know, they can add some richness to the chord. You're adding another note to the chord, but it doesn't change the name of the chord or the type of the chord. You can take a 5th out of the chord, it doesn't change the name of it. You can put a 5th in a chord. You can put a bunch of 5ths in a chord. It doesn't change the type or the name. If you alter the 5th and go sharp 5 or flat 5, then it does. But just 5th, okay, it's what we call a perfect. You might have heard the term perfect 5th, okay? It's a perfect interval. It doesn't alter the chord type, okay? Sorry to get off track too much there. Okay, say I'm on the A chord and I go, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. What's that? Well, I pretty much did what I did before with this A chord, where I went to my E form A chord. I grabbed my double stop, which is the root and the 3rd, and I simply move that up. Now, the caveat here is I've got to make a little bit of a, make a small alteration here, where when I move this double stop form up, I've got to straighten it out. You can see I have, these are on adjacent frets. Now on the next 3 moves, they're going to move to where they're on the same fret. Okay? That's not too bad. That's not too much of an alteration. You should be able to handle that. Okay? Let me show you where that is. Now, so we know, for instance, I just showed you this double stop move for the E form. So wherever you play an E form, it's going to always look and sound just like that. So say I go back to my E down here, my E form E. It's going to be same spot, the root and the third. Now it's harder to see the adjacent fret difference because the adjacent fret is the nut. Okay, the open E is just on the other side of the nut. There's no fret here. But pretend this is a fret. Pretend the nut is a fret. You still have the same spot. Then they're going to move to the same fret here. Okay, so I could go. Okay, that sounds nice because you're connecting those together. They are right next to each other. Notice how they move together. One moves right into the other. E, A, and then I could maybe go, okay, this is the octave of this down here. Think of if you played an E up here. Okay, there it is right there. That's very nice, right? Okay, pretty nice, right? That's the CAGED. That's the point of the CAGED system, okay? You're able to find these things quickly. You've got a map. You know where, well, not without some work, of course. But, okay, are you seeing it? Let me see if I can see any new comments here. Okay, so somebody just said they never thought of double stops as parts of the chords, and that's what they are, correct, right. And that is, again, another dimension of the point of learning, the CAGED system. Okay, you learn these things. Again, you know, getting a good teacher, okay? By the way, I teach online lessons, okay? Get a hold of me through I do private online lessons, I might as well mention that. I probably should have put some more links in here, you know, Facebook and, you know, email and all that stuff. I'll do that on the next one. You know, I'm trying to get this down. You know, I'm just starting out, and you know, that's gonna. I'm going to progress with that. I'm going to get better at that. Please feel free to, you know, hit me up with suggestions or tips or anything that you think that I should be doing that I'm not doing, or things that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing, and all that jazz, okay? But so that's the deal. So yeah, double stops are, you know, they're just pieces of these chords. They're sort of where you pick the insides of the chords. Let me just give you a couple more things related to that. Now, double stops on the guitar, the ones that I use at least, you need to hybrid pick these. So that would be something to mention, would be when I'm doing these kind of things. I am plucking the lower string with the pick, and I'm plucking the upper string with the middle finger, and sometimes with the third finger. I think I just lost my camera. If you guys can still hear me, I am going to replace the battery in my camera and see if I can get this back. If not, I bid you adieu. All right, guys, I don't know if you can still hear me, but I think I am. Let me go ahead and look at my chat here. Can you guys still hear me?